And we're back. Good evening, folks, tuning in tonight. I am not News 6 meteorologist Jonathan Kegges. No, David Nazario back with you here in the Digital Weather Center at News 6. It feels good to be back in the hot seat, to tell you the truth. And I know I have big shoes to fill tonight, but I'm going to try to do my buddy Jonathan Kegges proud this evening as I take over the helm with you all. Just want to double check everything is good to go. Say hello to a couple of you all over there over on YouTube. Melissa Riley, good evening. Kevin Hawthorne from Lakeland, great to see you in the chat. And those of you joining us over on News 6 Plus, we've got some pretty decent stuff to talk about tonight. We're not only going to talk close to home here in Central Florida, but we're also going to do a bit of an abbreviated, has to be abbreviated for the sake of time, but we're going to do an abbreviated deep dive into the tropics. So hold your questions to the end. Maybe grab a snack, your favorite drink if you want to settle in a little bit, and let's go ahead and get started. So here's our satellite image tonight. Still have that huge heat dome overhead. You can kind of see it plain as day. We've got that nice clockwise flow sitting over the southeast United States. If you look up there over the mid-Atlantic, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, notice we got the thunderstorms popping, and they're headed off towards the east generally, but then you look back down towards us, especially with that firing up of the thunderstorms we saw during the second half of the day. You can see how we suddenly shift towards a westerly direction. We have winds coming in off the east coast. That's that fateful high-pressure ridge that's just been absolutely dominating the pattern. Our heat indexes have been through the roof. We've all been more or less cooking, roasting. 4th of July came several weeks ago, but Mother Nature decided we're going to keep the barbecue kind of cruising through the month of July. And by the way, happy August Eve. I can't believe it's already July 31st. I also want to point out, I'll take you full screen one more time. If you look from about Dallas, just to the east of Dallas, up back into the Carolinas, that's also our cold front. That cold front's going to be coming in and helping us hope to drop some of these temperatures down just a little bit. Let's zoom on in on the radar. Honestly, fairly uneventful evening tonight. Might be a good thing. If you notice, it looks like our East Coast breeze has kind of gotten hung up as well out there in parts of Brevard and south of Palm Bay. You can kind of see the green shades there on the radar indicating what could have been the breeze trying to push in, or perhaps what's left of an additional push off the coastline. And that's likely why we didn't get too much in the way of thunderstorms to fire up as much as we have over the last couple days. Yesterday, I was here training with Jonathan in the digital room, and as I was on my way home around, I don't even remember, to tell you the truth. Everything's kind of blurred together. But anyways, in the evening, I was on my way home, and I was still getting rocked by thunder, lightning, and heavy rainfall headed southbound, or westbound, I should say, on I-4. Now, before I take up too much of your time rambling on, I want to make sure I keep with the time and keep with the breaks. This is what we know. So these are your headlines. Tonight and then through the weekend, it's Friday Eve. Sea breeze is going to continue. With that front coming down out of the northwest, we're going to get a nice little pocket of additional moisture in the mid-levels of the environment. And as a result, we're going to see our rain chances begin to pick up this weekend. It won't be a tremendous amount because we will still be battling the influence of that high pressure that'll get kind of bullied off towards the east into the westernmost Atlantic. Stick around for the second half of the show because we're going to talk about how that could play into what the tropics try to do as we go through the month of August. Then, as you can see, the weekend cold front's going to arrive. Not tracking anything in terms of severe weather. We will likely see a little bit more of the scattered showers and storms out there. More of us will get the much needed rainfall if you haven't already. I know it's been very weird this month. Some of us have been absolutely inundated with rainfall, others not so much. And then last but certainly not least, at the bottom there, I wouldn't be meteorologist David Nazario if we didn't talk tropics. So I would highly encourage you stick around for the duration of the show. We've got some good information for you. Now let's get back to the meat and potatoes of what's happening out there today. These are your observed high temperatures. I bring that up because this is just your air temperature here. Notice Sanford topped out at 97 degrees. Kissimmee, runner up there, same with Gainesville at 96. Orlando, the greater Orlando area, came in at 95. And remember, this is not factoring in the heat index. When it comes to the heat index, for those of you who may not be familiar, think of it like the culmination of a receipt at the grocery store. You go to Publix or Walmart or wherever it is you do your grocery shopping, and you pick up a loaf of bread for $3.99. Lord knows I wish it was another $1.99 too, but inflation. $3.99. You go to scan it at the checkout and it says, oh, 421, but it said $3.99 on the price tag. Well, that'd be your air temperature. Once you factor in the taxes and the little fees upon checking out and cashing out, that's your heat index. You have your air temperature, and then you factor in a couple of other variables out there in the atmosphere, and that's what it actually feels like for us. For those of you who may not be familiar, just a little crash course for you. As you can see, as we move into the heat indexes, we're still cooking. Sanford, look at you guys out there. I hope you're doing all right. It's 9:35 at night. The sun's been down for a little over an hour or so now. We're still at the triple digits in terms of our heat index out there. So we are definitely marinating. And tomorrow is not going to be much better. We gotta grin and bear for at least 1 or 2 more days before that cold front can come down. These are your forecasted values for tomorrow. You see Lakeland at 110. Gainesville 107, Greater Orlando at 105, and woof, East Coast, you're baking. I should say you're roasting because you got a little bit of that moisture, the humidity. It's not exactly a dry heat like they would say out in Arizona when I was stationed out that way. Titusville at 111, New Smyrna Beach at 110. So you're not even going to be comfortable if you're hanging out there on the sand. This is an hour by hour for your day tomorrow. Notice we're going to be peaking at around the 3 p.m. time frame, and then the rain chances are going to pick back up for the second half of the day. That sea breeze round is going to be coming in. Now, here we go. This is going to be your big picture weather pattern. You've got the cold front sliding in as we go through the first half of this weekend. And notice how much of that precip, the shades of green and yellows out there, really pick up as the front comes down between Saturday and Sunday. And then off the East Coast, National Hurricane Center doesn't have anything for us just yet, but we are going to be watching one suspicious area of low pressure out there to see if it tries to do a little something tropical, more homegrown madness, which has pretty much constituted the first half of the hurricane season. Now, before we go to break, we did have a scrub of our Falcon 9 launch today that's going to be going off at 11:43 tomorrow morning, so hopefully we can get that off the ground. And then as we come back, we'll talk a little more about local weather, and then we're diving face first into the tropics. So folks, don't go anywhere. We will be right back. All right, and welcome back to News 6 Weather at 9:30. Now let's go ahead and transition. We're going to shift gears. So hold on, fasten your seatbelts. Let's go ahead and get into one last graphic. Kind of what I'd alluded to in the beginning of the stream, and especially if you caught Ginger and Matt a little while ago. I'd mentioned temperatures are going to start to come back down, but they're not going to quite come all that back down, if that makes sense. Our heat indexes will settle in about what's average for Central Florida this time of year. As we rock into August, we're kind of at the peak of the summer season. Not quite at the peak of the hurricane season, but as you can see here, based on Climate Prediction Center's next couple weeks, especially as we go between the dates of August 8th and August 14th, the Florida Peninsula is still going to be fairly above average. But the further north you go, you kind of get closer to the norm. So when we say there's relief coming, it's just not to the point where we have to worry about heat advisories, let alone excessive heat warnings, which is always good news. Now, the fact we are still going to be above average in terms of our temperatures tells me that gives me a suspicion that whatever tries to flare up in the tropics, whether it be a wave, a disturbance, or a bona fide named storm, may try to make a run towards some major land masses out there. And I'm not sure if you've all been tracking, but this is Climate Prediction Center's latest global tropics hazards outlook. And I'll take you full screen so we can marinate on this together a little bit. We have a 20 to 40% shot of tropical formation, tropical development out there in what's called the main development region. And I'll go ahead and we're going to do some fun doodles. I love to draw for you all. This here is your main development region between the Lesser Antilles of your Eastern Caribbean and the west coast of Africa. You've probably heard it before if you've been tracking the tropics with us here at News 6 or with your other favorite weather sources you follow out there on TV and social media. Some would split hairs and say that MDR, as it's when you put it in the acronym, extends through the Caribbean. But for all intents and purposes, when we say MDR, we're talking that yellow box I've drawn in there. And then this area here is actually a combination of what I'd mentioned could be drifting off the east coast of the United States. Thankfully, the cold front and the trough supporting the front is going to pick that area of low pressure off and zip it out into the upper Atlantic. So that's not going to be an issue. We're just going to get some beneficial rain from the backside of the front down here in Florida. But then we also have a wave out there that's currently fairly barren. It's dry out there. Kind of reminds me of Arizona once again, to kind of throw that back into the equation. Here's a look at your tropical satellite. I'll pull up my handy dandy pen tool once again so we can do a little bit more doodling. There's your wave right there. It's dry. We have a small little pocket of thunderstorms on the northernmost periphery of it, where the top of the wave axes would be called. Think of a tropical wave like this, kind of like a cockeyed or a concaved hand or a little angle, like a half circle, so to speak. Usually where you get the most energy or the most rotation that may try to turn in to an actual tropical storm is on the northern side of it. So as these waves move westward through the Atlantic, sometimes you'll see, especially if they're a little more ramped up, spoiler alert, if you look to the right of where my circle is, we're going to talk about that feature here in a second. That's where you'll get some of the action. This is forecast to move off in this general fashion. And if you follow social media, a lot of the meteorologists and even the non-official weather sources out there, this definitely generated a little bit of hubbub out there in the social media waves, the radio waves on the digital platform. Models have lost touch with this one, but then back on the right-hand side of your screen there, the right side of the globe, I'm not going to zoom us over because unfortunately the GOES satellite cuts off as you get into the western portion of Africa. But that's another nasty wave that's going to be coming off the coast and splashing down just to the immediate southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands out there off the west shores of Africa. And that's the one that the models are starting to latch onto. And before we go any further, before I pull up some additional graphics for you all, we're going to continue on with a couple of the ones I have pulled up here. So first and foremost, this has been interesting to watch. We've actually seen some record warming. When I say record warming, I mean the pace at which the Atlantic is warmed up. We've actually seen warming occur where it matters the most for the hurricane season. And if you notice on the northern side of this map, if you're looking at the globe, notice where your blue shades are now. If you were to rewind the clock back to, say, this time in June or even April, March, going way back in time, we had all the cool bubbles out there across that main development region where that oval circle shade is. We also, thanks to that good old ridge, remember I said it was going to have implications, the heat dome that's been blistering us has really cranked up the water temperatures right around the southeast and the mid-Atlantic coast. Note there I have the caption, warmest waters close to home. So that's going to be very interesting. And right now, that actually is where our most favorable conditions are in the Atlantic. And then last but not least, before we do a couple other graphics here, I wanted to show you this because this is what has me concerned. Right now, we're not tracking any named storms. National Hurricane Center isn't forecasting any development over the next 7 days, but the pattern is there. Now it's just a matter of if the environment, the background state as we call it, is going to improve. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pull up a couple of things I have for you all. And well, I should say one, just for the sake of not running over time. Let's go ahead and pull this puppy up. This is going to be a Havmahler diagram. I know that sounds very fancy. It probably lost a lot of you, but the only thing you need to remember about this graphic, if you ever see it pulled up, greens or the teals and all that mean lift. The oranges and the reds mean sinking. And right now, as we await the passage of that Madden-Julian oscillation, notice we're going to be focusing the lift over our ocean, the Atlantic, and then especially there over Africa, which means we're going to have some fairly amped up waves traversing the continent of Africa and then splashing down into a much more favorable Atlantic. We've been battling higher pressure and sinking motions in the cooler waters out there for much of the year, let alone the first couple months of the season. And I really do think, regardless of development, the background environment, the Atlantic basin, much of our northern hemisphere, the corner that we share with the rest of the world, is going to tidy itself up. It's going to get a little better, especially as we go through the midsections of August. That's when we're really pinpointing the threat for another named storm or two to try to make an attempt to get going. So I hope you got some questions. I'm ready to rock and roll and answer them. We'll be right back from one more break, so stick around. I promise I'll make sure to get to your questions to the best of my ability, so don't go anywhere, folks. Another break coming right at you. We're back for the Q&A section. So I hope you've got some questions. I'm ready to answer them. Thank you so much for those of you who've stuck around. It means a lot to us here at News 6. And if you haven't done so already, over on YouTube, I want to encourage you, give that like button a little nudge. Something I like to say on some of my personal social media, but believe it or not, it really helps get this information out to more folks so we can better assist them at getting them the accurate, timely, and reliable weather information they need here from Central Florida or wherever it is you may be tuning in from. So over on YouTube, before we get ready to wrap up, I want to give a special shout out to Sue from Nova Scotia. She says, welcome back, David. It means a lot. It's great to be back, to tell you the truth. Looks like I got back in the nick of time to tell you the truth, especially if things do slowly end up on the up and up through the month of August. And then Melissa Riley asks, since the ocean is really warm, will the hurricanes start popping up? So to tell you the truth, there's a couple of different layers in that question. And if anybody else has questions, feel free to drop them in. I'll go ahead and elaborate further on this until I see another one or two drop into the chat. We have seen some pretty good warming occur, believe it or not, within the last 2 to 3 weeks of just July. Our Atlantic high pressure, the subtropical high that typically dominates out there, kind of like the graphic I'd shown you earlier, this guy right there, it started to weaken a little bit. And as a result, we've decreased the amount of winds moving off towards the west across the Atlantic, which typically help to stir the waters, bring out some of the cooler stuff from subsurface to the surface. We've actually really started to see the ocean surface warming up. And with the African easterly jet, another finger of the jet stream, if you will, that moves east to west across Africa, helping to pump out those waves over open water, that also contributes to helping to warm up the environment so ever so slightly off the west coast there of Africa and through the main development region. Now, while the water temperatures have gotten more favorable because we are now 2 years away from our El Nino event that occurred during the hurricane season of 2023, if you're familiar or you remember, we're seeing a lot more high pressure ridging. We're seeing a lot more sinking. That heat that was originally taken off the ocean that just spread up into the atmosphere. It's called the ocean-atmosphere connection. With water so warm and all that rising motion focused up, that heat and the energy has to go somewhere, and it goes into our atmosphere. And as a result, we're starting to see an expansion of our ridging and our sinking motions across the Atlantic. And that's why we're waiting for the MJO to come across to see if we'll see things flip-flop. We'll go from capsize to right side up and start to see a little bit more of that vertical movement in our air towards the highest points of our atmosphere. So while we do see things improving, it's not a guarantee that things are going to go gangbusters. And I'm very excited to see what Colorado State University has to say as we get into the first week of August with their next update, because I've been talking with Dr. Phil Klotzbach behind the scenes to get his thoughts. He's confident we're going to see some additional stuff pop off as we rock through August, especially after about August 10th. August 10th to about August 25th. Feel free to take notes, especially if you're rewatching this at a later date and time. Between August 10th and August 25th, I think, is when we're really going to ripen things up out there. And some of these tropical waves meandering off the coast of Africa may actually have a better shot, a better running at becoming a little more than just a raggedy-looking wave when you take a look at a satellite shot. So naturally, we're going to continue to watch as we get ready to close out. We'll see you all again very soon. It's been an absolute pleasure talking weather with you all this evening. I hope I get an opportunity to talk weather with you all going forward here over the next few weeks. You'll probably see more of me if the tropics do start to misbehave a little bit, but you can count on all of us here at News 6 to get you the best information possible to keep you and your loved ones ahead of the storm, regardless of what the peak of this hurricane season may be throwing at us. So happy Friday Eve. I hope your day went fantastic. I hope you have a solid start to your Friday tomorrow and a wonderful weekend. But until next time, this is the Digital Weather Center signing out.